Hey, Augustine. First, I thank you for what you said at the beginning of your video about not, from the very beginning, treating theistic belief systems as somehow ignorant or uninformed or illogical or irrational or downright stupid. Because so many times I'll hear in videos by atheists, this, even if they don't explicitly say it, it's just this tone of voice that they're talking to someone who is obviously of a lower IQ than them whenever they're arguing against a theist, and um, that's I've seen plenty of examples when that's not necessarily the case. And really, intelligence doesn't have much to do with whether you are a religious believer or a fervent atheist. You can certainly be a stupid theist, and I've seen just as many stupid atheists, though. So there's really no correlation between intelligence and whether you're an atheist or a theist, and certainly there are other things to be as well. Not everyone really fits into whatever these two categories are supposed to mean. Um, so, moving on, I think this question of whether or not God exists is an interesting one. You mentioned two reasons why we might suppose a God exists. This paradox that something can't possibly come from nothing, um, and also the idea that this universe is just too complex to have happened by accident. And you didn't talk about the complexity issue yet. I guess that'll be part two. I've only watched part one so far, but you did go into the something from nothing issue, and you admit that infinity, or a question like what happened before the Big Bang, is mind-boggling, and that when a theist sort of inserts God as the answer to these questions about the meaning of eternity, which would be the only answer you could give, right, to what happened or what was there before the Big Bang. There was eternity. There was infinite potential, and science and cosmology, they're beginning to talk about these things out of necessity. They don't talk about God, but a sophisticated theist who recognizes that they have to take into consideration the scientific empirical picture of the evolution of this particular universe. If they're dealing with that evidence, then they're as far along as any scientist is as well when it comes to answering certain ultimate questions about the nature of human existence. Which that's what religion ideally would be for me. It's asking those ultimate questions that science can't always provide us an answer to. Not that science isn't useful, and of course, we should always strive to use the scientific method, to come up with a hypothesis, to experiment, collect data, and then see if that data stands, or how our hypothesis stands in light of that data. We should always attempt this method, but sometimes when it comes to immaterial aspects of life, and certainly there are, if you just, what is matter, really, when you get down to it? Matter is anything that can be measured. The standard Newtonian type of materialism, where there's actually some kind of ultimate stuff, some particle, atom, uncuttable piece that isn't composed of anything itself that makes up the rest of reality, that's no longer really a scientific. Quantum physics shows that really it's a field of energy, and based on how there's some kind of statistical, probabilistic, ultimately spontaneous activity, it forms itself into everything we see around us. So matter is really is this dynamic, energetic flux of potential. It's not this solid stuff that's inactive and dumb. Scientists don't talk about energy as being intelligent, but it's obvious if we're going to avoid some kind of a substance dualism that our human consciousness is related to this whole physical evolutionary process. You said in your video, Augustine, that there's a scientific consensus now that consciousness arises in the brain. I wouldn't dispute that necessarily, but I would just ask what we mean by consciousness arises from the brain, because what is the definition of consciousness as it is used in this context? because I don't think science has done much experimentation on consciousness, actually. They've definitely looked a lot at the brain, but to even talk of consciousness at all, to use that word, we're implying something not merely reducible to the brain. We're implying that which um, may be closely related to the brain, but it's a different ontological perspective that we're talking about when we talk about consciousness. It's the interior of the brain, not just spatially inside, but inside in the sense that there is this intensity of feeling and emotion and awareness and cognition and understanding and imagination, all the things that we think of as being part of at least human consciousness. Um, that isn't reducible to the brain, for the simple reason that you can slice open my skull right now and not know, what the taste of banana bread is, because it's an immaterial aspect of the event called human being eating banana bread. So, when we ask a question about what there could possibly be in the universe besides matter, we're forgetting that matter always existed because it could be measured, and a measurement is a human term for something which is just for when an atom comes into contact with another atom, they've measured each other. They've relayed some information. They've said, "Oh, I'm here," and they've somehow communicated. They've exchanged a feeling between one another, and that's what it means for there to be matter. There's a relationship between bodies, and that's what the cosmos is. Um, so there's certainly cause and effect going on, but I'd only say there's more than matter to the universe, because there's also experience, there's also consciousness, there's the outside surface and the interior feeling, and every material body has both of these aspects. So I think I touched on everything that you touched on, or at least that I found significant in your first video. But I'm really liking the way you're approaching this, and I'm going to go into part 2 and maybe post a response to that as well. So thanks for listening.